Let's try that again. Welcome to the Iron Edge, the first in the series, I guess, the first episode of the Iron Edge podcast, helping you unlock your potential in and outside of the gym, life, lifting, all that good stuff. I'm Ken Nowicki. This podcast is brought to you by Cerberus Strength USA. You can use the code IRONEDGE for 10% off your order right now. And today's guest, the very first guest...
That's right, I'm number one.
Kira Wrixon.
That's me. I'm so
you?
thankful for you to have me here.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this.
I know, especially since I'm the test dummy.
You're the test dummy.
Yeah.
A little apprehensive, a little like, oh man, how's this going to go?
Hey, you know what? It's going to go as good as it's going to go.
That's the way we're looking at it.
Yeah.
So, how are you?
I'm good. I flew in on Tuesday from South Carolina to New York, and then we drove up this morning.
Yep. Because
So,
you're in town for No Fame Game tomorrow.
yeah, I'm super excited. This is going to be my first time ever throwing with pros in Highland Games. To say that I am prepared is a joke. To be completely honest with you, I haven't thrown since the Radford Games that was in October. Because if you don't know me, I tore my hamstring at America's Strongest Woman in December. So I've just been rehabbing, and this is kind of like my 6-month tester to see if we're ready. And I love Highland Games so much that if I could, I would just do those, to be honest with you. They're just so exciting. I threw in high school, and everybody's just so nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, like we said, like you threw last year.
Yep.
When did you start doing Highland Games?
So Highland Games, I was actually working for 2 motorcycle shops in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and Willie Danzer walked into one of the shops and asked if the shop would sponsor what is the Holiday Highlander. It happens every year on the 1st of December, the first weekend in December, and it's a charity event to raise money for veterans. To get them with PTSD dogs. And it's a Highland Games and Strongman. And I was trying to get into Strongman a little bit more. And the fact that it was a Highland Games and I threw in high school, I thought it was so cool. And that's kind of just how I fell into it. And then he's been my coach for the last it'll be 4 years.
Wow. So you weren't doing Strongman at all at that point. You just sort of fell into Highland Games and then fell into Strongman.
Yep.
Okay.
I hadn't even, when I competed in my first Highland Games, I had just competed in my first ever strongman competition. It was a USS comp in Fayetteville. It was in November, and then I competed in my first Highland Games the first weekend in December. So the first 2 months of 2019 was the first time that I ever did any of this.
Yeah. So, like we said before we started this whole deal, I don't want this to be just a podcast of, how'd you get into Strongman? How did you, what's your favorite event and all that sort of stuff. Like, I want to know who you are as a not even as an athlete, but as a person. So let's roll it back a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I know you're from New York. I know like athletic background is a little bit unexpected maybe.
Yeah, no one would have any idea that I played basketball from the 5th grade until my senior year of high school. Fielded some college offers, didn't know what I wanted to go to college for, so I stayed and did a local college, and then I fell into MMA and did that for 5 years. But yeah, not many people think, because I'm 4'11", that I played competitively in AAU my whole life. I started in small town leagues when I was in 3rd grade, but I started traveling all over the U.S. when I was in 5th grade and played in all these different tournaments. So
I mean, through that period of time, do you think that was instrumental in your development?
Oh, absolutely.
Not even as an athlete, but as a person. Like for me, I did Strongman from the age of 17, through college, through my master's degree and all that sort of stuff, and having that other side of life really, I think, developed me as a person, because then you try to balance it all at a young age and all that sort of stuff.
And I think it really gives you a prime example of discipline.
Yes.
And commitment. So if I always tried a new sport, I mean, I was one of those kids that I did a sport every single season, and then I played basketball year round. So I did volleyball, softball, track, and basketball. So I was always doing something. And then when I was even younger, I was one of those kids that did gymnastics and ballet and karate, and I just had to be doing something. But my parents made it very clear that if you're going to commit to this and you're going to commit to your team and your instructors or your coach, you're going to finish it out. I don't care if you hate it. I don't care if you're in love with it and you want to do more of it. You've committed this time to these people and this team, and you're going to finish it.
Yeah.
So it really instilled that in me, that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the best of my capabilities, unless I don't enjoy it. And then I can kind of pick and choose from there, but I got to finish it out.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing that was always
Did
told
they make
to
you
me.
do the season? Like, say if it's like, oh, you're gonna do this for summer. You had to do it all summer, or was it like a set time? Like, oh, you're gonna do it for a month, or?
I did it for whatever season was going to be. So like I hate softball. Sorry for all you softball players. But I always played baseball when I was younger. But softball was just too slow for me.
Yeah.
But I was really fast. So the coach begged me to play varsity softball so I could pinch run for everybody and play right field and second base. That's where I was at. And I hated it. Was miserable. The cheering on the bench, it was just not my style sport. But that was it. I wasn't going to quit during the season. It didn't matter. I had to play softball. And so I finished it out. And then that next year, I was like, I'm just going to go back to track. I hate running, but I'll just throw and be lazy and enjoy it. But I finished it.
Yeah.
And like, it's kind of with life. It's a season, right? So it'll finish itself out. You go through the process of it. You give it everything you have. But then when that new season comes in, everything's a new focus.
Yeah. And do you think that, like there's like that old saying, like, like you learn things in the gym, you learn about yourself in the gym. Do you feel that these things, be it the sport or even schooling and stuff like that, completely changed how you approach life, like through your 20s?
Yeah. I mean, and it was always, I think it's really important, especially, and I hate to say for females, right? I'm not a guy. I don't know what you guys deal with, but emotionally and physically, I think it's so important for women to be involved in anything athletic, anything that you can do to make yourself stronger and more independent as a person. So then if you do move out on your own, you don't have a boyfriend, you don't have a girlfriend, you're single, whatever you are, you can do it on your own.
Yeah.
And you're okay with it, and you're safe in feeling that manner. And I think sports in general and athletics and training or just lifting gives you that independent feeling that you can go out and conquer anything.
Yeah, and I think from a guy's perspective, I know like obviously social norms and all that sort of stuff differ between the sexes, but I think for, a developing young male, same deal. Like, even older, like my mother's starting to go to the gym. She's 60.
Yeah.
I was like, when you start doing some of this stuff and have the successes and you feel a bit stronger, you feel a bit fitter, you feel like you see a number in the scale change. Like there's those successes and like that dopamine dump from that. I think that changes how you operate, And
I think it's really important for like people that are starting to age that are in sports that if you stop moving, it's over. It's like a shark. A shark constantly moves. And if they don't, they end up dying.
Yeah.
So if you stay sedentary, it's just going to happen. And it doesn't have to be competitive. It doesn't have to be backbreaking. It's just movement. It's just getting out there and going for a walk.
That's something that I've struggled with. Like pulling back from competing, putting more focus on the business side of stuff, focusing on like, being engaged and doing stuff like, like with Michelle and like going hiking and all that sort of stuff. Like for like when I pulled back from Strongman, I was like, shit, what did I do?
Yeah.
I felt lost. But like over the last couple of years, like I've sort of realized I need to move every day. If I'm going to feel good in myself, I need to move in some way, shape or form, even if it's just walking the dog.
Yeah. It's just getting that blood flow going. And mentally, that's super, super helpful.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've seen so many people that have gotten out of a sport and that sport was their whole identity. And I'm scared at some point that like when I tore my hamstring and I couldn't compete, and the 64 kgs compete out in Colorado next weekend. And this is the first major show that I can't compete in since I've turned pro. And mentally, it is probably one of the hardest things that I'm trying to work through. But I'll go for a hike and I'll go do Highland Games. I can do things that I can still move around with while I'm healing. But I have to realize, and I think everybody does, that the sport that you compete in competitively doesn't have to be your life. You have
Yeah.
to still keep living
Yes.
everything else. There are relationships and families and hobbies. Like I really got into puzzling these last few months. Like my favorite thing to do is to buy a brand new 1,000-piece puzzle, and I will just sit there and I will just puzzle until either my eyes hurt or like my neck hurts from like leaning down so much.
It's funny, like those things that make you relaxed. Like they say, like, oh, don't be on your phone at bedtime.
Yeah.
I lay in bed playing Tetris, and then I fall asleep.
Candy Crush is my life.
No. I don't know. It's something about just like that. You're focused, but it's like chilled out. It's weird.
That's your wind down.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own wind down routine, and mine was video games for a really long time, but I would get so infatuated with the story because I really like role play games that I just didn't want to shut it off.
Yeah.
So with a puzzle, it ends when I end. I don't have to complete a story, or I don't have one more mission, or I'm not trying to gain one more HP before I close this thing off. It's just, it is what it is, and I can shut it down when I want. So puzzles are a good time.
Interesting. I never took you for a puzzler.
I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
I was reading for a while too, but then I would get so tired at night by the time I was done puzzling that like I'd like smack my head on the book and like I'm done.
I always go back and forth about reading more, and I'm terrible at it because I'm like, I really want to read and like get books for my birthday or books for Christmas. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna start reading this, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I have like, so I can't start multiple books. I am on, you start a book and you finish a book, even if it's really shitty, it is what it is. But then I went through a really shitty book, so it took me like a few months to get through it, and it kind of burned me out on it, and that's when I switched gear to puzzling.
Okay.
And it's kind of just been really enjoyable since.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, and Columbia, South Carolina is so fucking hot that I don't want to go outside, and neither do my dogs. I have 4 different blow-up pools, so like all of us can be in our own pool, but it's still way too hot. So we'll go inside and we'll puzzle together.
Okay. Okay.
I shocked you that much with my puzzling hobby, didn't I? I just really threw you
I was
off.
like, where do I go from this now?
You know what? Every puzzle that I finish, I'm going to send you a picture of the puzzle. You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
that's what I'm
you.
here for.
So coming into like the Highland Games and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you've got Highland Games, you know, the athletic stuff of basketball, track, and all that sort of stuff. Strong women, like, you know, we talked before we started recording, you know, 2019, you started all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not that long ago, and you're already, like, you took second at OSG last year, you won 64 kilo America's Strongest Women. Like, to do that in such a short period, and your deadlift is huge.
Yeah.
And to do all that sort of stuff in such a short period of time isn't really common. So what do you think, like, the reason for the success is? Is it the you know, the determination and this sort of
Drive to be able
from
to do
other
it.
sports, or what do you think?
I think that's a really big mental side of it. I think the physical side of things it really started when I was much younger. So I have an older brother, he's 4 years older than me. And he was always in sports. And then he got into powerlifting when he was 16. And I was 12, and I went and I saw his first powerlifting meet. And it was like downstairs at a local gym, and it was really creepy, and it was really uncomfortable, and it smelled, and it was awful, and I fell in love. And I just wanted to lift. And my dad said, no, absolutely not. You can't touch a free weight until you are 14 years old. And there was like a certain amount of push-ups, dips, and pull-ups that I had to do in front of him in a certain amount of time. And then at 14, I could hit free weights. And I think I had such a strong base and such an athletic base at that time because I was also sent to pre-C speed school. I'm not sure.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so because I was so active in basketball and all of these other sports, my parents were like, you need to go perfect yourself more as an athlete and do this the right way. And I was really lucky that my parents supported me in any sport that I wanted to and wanted me to be the best. So I was sent to pre-C speed school. So I would have whatever practice or games that whole entire week and weekend, and I would be at pre-C speed school 2 to 3 times a week. And it was, when I wasn't there, I was training with my dad. Like my dad would force me to go outside and do all of these drills and do sprints and just have a really good athletic base. And I think at such a young age, especially with females, it's so important to have a strong base for body weight. Like knock on wood, I was the only girl, and still to this day, like never had a knee injury. All of the girls that I played basketball with, they're like on second and third knee surgeries by the time they were 18. And it was wild to me. Or they would have hip injuries because women grow at such a slower rate, or a faster rate once we hit puberty, that everything changes overnight almost. I think they really wanted to drive home that I just wanted to be a healthy athlete. And I think that really started a good base for me, and then it just kind of progressed from there. But I've always been really easy to pick up anything heavy, in the sense of like it never felt too hard for me.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky in that, and that sounds stupid, right? But I was just blessed. Ugh, I hate that word. But like I was lucky, you know? Genetically, I'm just athletic. And so I could transfer sport to sport or go into lifting and not have a problem with it. But my moving events for Strongman are still real dicey.
What do you think that reason is then?
Well, I've gone through a few physical therapists, a few different coaches, and they just say that my glutes are not strong enough for how heavy my legs are.
Okay.
So it's baby. And now that my hamstring blew, like that was a really hard thing to try to balance out. But like for OSG, right, took second, and I placed 26th on Farmers. I wake up every single morning and think about how I placed 26th on Farmers. And that part of that mental drive, I think, is really like I never want to feel like that again.
I was going to say, what does that do for you on a daily basis?
Oh, yeah. I still think about the first time I ever competed at Strongman Corp Nationals in 2020, when I placed 9th. And I was like, I will never, ever be 9th in anything ever again. Except probably tomorrow for the Highland Games.
I don't know.
Hey, Hannah Lindsay's going to be there. Can we talk? Well, I go up to her kneecap. What am I going to do?
Accurate, yes.
Yeah, no. So but I'm again, it's really just so much fun for me.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of where I think really hit home for me to be so diverse as an athlete, was having such a strong body weight base.
Well, I think that's something in society we don't really see much nowadays.
Right.
You know, if we're completely honest, like, hell, even when we were kids, I mean, like, you know, people didn't really lift. They would, like, you know, just, I don't know, just like the what's, in my opinion at least, like what's valued from a physical attribute sided point of things is not there these days.
No,
you know?
like I'm so jealous of kids that are in high school now. Like the weight rooms that they have actual lifting programs in high school. I would have given anything to have that kind of thing in my high school. We had normal gym class.
The funny thing is, like, people like over here, like they look at like high school sports. High school sports in the US blows college sports in the UK out the water.
Really?
Oh yeah. Like when I was in college, I'd walk in the gym and obviously I'm training for Strongman, and the rugby team would be there. And they'd be max deadlifting. I'm like, why are you max deadlifting? That's not sport specific. Why are you not power cleaning? Why are you not doing, you know, plyometric stuff, yada, yada, yada? And it was like max deadlift, bicep curls, and just
man workouts.
Stupid
Yeah,
crap,
stuff that
you
didn't
know?
transport
Like,
to what they
why
needed to be.
are you doing that? And that's the thing. That's the biggest thing, that like moving stateside, I'm like, man, I wish my dad took that job in like, you know, in Texas. You know? Like when I was 8 or whatever, I'm like, man, what could I have done? You know? Obviously I wouldn't be here now, so I don't regret any of it.
Right.
But it's like really eye-opening to me to be like, okay, that's a whole different ball game over here compared to to the UK.
And you say that, and all I could think about when I was like 8 to 10, even when I was hitting like 15, because that's when College Scouts started to look at you for basketball. Like things really started to set up for you your sophomore year. And I was doing so well, but I was from such a small town, and the East Coast was never, because I'm from upstate New York. So like the schools are decent size, but I came from a really small school. But the South, the South was where every major athlete came from. Besides growing up like Diana Taurasi, she was from Connecticut. Like she played at UConn. She was from upstate too. Like, so you saw these players that were like once in a blue moon that would come out from an East Coast state. But every major college, every major like triple A or 4A high school was all in the South. And I begged my parents, I was like, please just move me to the South or like send me to a private school down there. Like just let me get in these bigger schools with these bigger pools of people to prove that I can play with them. We never moved, but and again, I ended up where I am because of the paths we took.
Yeah.
But so I have no idea what would have happened.
That's like for me, like you know, I'm intrigued to know like you're like you know, expanding on that topic a little bit. Like, you know, I try and view life as okay. Yes, there's certain things I would love to have done or be able to do again, but everything's brought me to here.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like my dad passed like 3 months, not even 3 months, 10 weeks I think it was after I turned 21.
Wow, you were young.
Yeah, super young. And I'm like, man, I say this to Michelle all the time. Like, I'm like, I would literally murder someone with my bare hands, with a smile on my face, for 30 seconds with them again.
Yeah.
But if that didn't happen, I don't have any of where I'm at now.
You have no idea what would have
so
path
it
would have
completely
taken you.
changes my life. Is there anything like that for you that you?
Oh yeah, I mean,
wonder?
I wish that I found Strongman sooner. You know, I wish that I started actually being consistent training sooner because of all of the sports that I did. And like once I got out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I gained some weight and then I found boxing and I was in love. And then I did some boxing matches for a while. And then because of how short I was, I kind of like crept in and all of my coaches were like, you should throw wrestling in, you should do jits, you should do Muay Thai. And it just morphed into me fighting on and off for 5 years. But I wish that I was consistent because after those 5 years, like I'd go to the gym, and then I'd go to like for a run, and then I wouldn't do anything for like a month at a time. And so me consistently training as an athlete, it's only been since maybe 2018.
Wow.
Like in the gym, training, like this was the longest after I had a trip to deal with some family things the end of April until May. So I stayed in New York for almost a month and I got really sick and I was only able to train 1 week out of May. And that was the longest that I've gone. Even when I tore my hamstring, I was still like in the shower. I would try to do some rehab stuff when it was warm, some banded stuff. I would go on like light walks. I would do some physical therapy. So I was consistently doing something. But this last like 3 weeks, I've done nothing. Like this Monday was the first time that I've gotten to work on the 18-inch deadlift that I'm attempting for the world record in August. And it's only a few months away.
Yeah.
And so this was the first time since 2018 that like I haven't been consistent, and mentally that has driven me into the ground.
It's funny that you say it because that was literally where I was going to go. I was like,
Yeah.
From when you started lifting consistently, how did you see it change your mental health? Obviously you've got physical changes, but how did you see it carried through to things outside? Like outside the gym, like life.
Yeah.
Like were you more driven at work? Did you see more success at work? Did you see more success in personal relationships? You know?
I get so fixated that I have a really hard time balancing things, and I'm working on it really hard,
Yeah.
right? So like if I get so fixated, I was so fixated on the first American deadlift record, like I completely left my relationship and just like let it fall apart. And that's not fair. Like how is that fair to him? Or like work, you know, like I left my job in February, my full-time job, because I know that I can be so much better than what I am if I can laser focus and do what I need to do and create more opportunities for myself. I'm not the best balancer, but it has really taught me routine and discipline. And if you stick to your routine and you stick to your discipline, you have a lot more time to be able to fit in equal balance for family, for friends, for dogs, for hobbies, for just things that make you happy. So it's been a real struggle since December. But I've also I've worked, because every day I try not to wake up and say, I wish that I would have started this sooner, or I wish that I did something different. I can't change it. I'm here. I have to deal with everything that I've made the decisions for to be where I'm at. And I can't think about what if, or I can't think about, man, I would give anything to go back and start 6 months sooner or start 1 year sooner. You can't, because you drive yourself insane.
You're preaching to the choir.
No, but
Completely.
it's literally something I have to wake up, and if I have that thought throughout the day, and shut up, Kira, you can't change it. You can't go back and do an extra rep that you should have done in training. You can't go back 2 years ago and say, I should have worked a little bit harder for me to get a better place at nationals. Or maybe if I started sooner, I would be in a different spot. Rhiannon Lovelace is incredible. She's been doing this since she was 19. She just turned 27?
Something like that,
27. So she's been doing this so long. And all I could think of was like, man, I would give anything to have started that at 19. But I was in a different spot in my life. And where I was landed me in this chair. And we're fine with that. But it's a lot of repetition with repeating that to yourself.
Yeah. And that's the same for me. It took me a long time to like sort of like I was on the cusp of worlds for like more than once for a long time. And I'm like, man, like I never got to worlds. It's like, but I have to look at where I'm at now, you know, and that's the big takeaway for me. But I think all the lessons throughout all the sports and all the college and everything just made everything now better.
Yeah.
You know, and I completely agree with you when you say like, you know, the more like focused you are with lifting and stuff like that, like everything else clicks more.
Yeah.
That's what I've found.
Yeah. If I stay on a routine, I feel good. I eat good. I train good. I sleep good. My relationships are great. Everything falls into line, and I hate to say that it's because of training, but it just goes back to routine and schedule. It doesn't have to be training for somebody. It could be just a hobby that you are so engulfed with, or even if you like make a side hustle, if you make jewelry, if whatever you do, just you have to have some sort of routine, because if you don't, you have no structure, and you're just gonna fall apart.
And I think that's a big thing in society these days too.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like you just feel like things are just different.
I think COVID, when everything really, and I hate to pin that, right? Because no one wants to talk about it anymore, but it's a huge player. It was 2.5 years that we just completely lost because we were told to stay home. We couldn't do anything. And I think that's also like, I stayed and I hit, like, so my first competition for Strongman, right, was 2019, November. March 2020, the world shut down.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just hid and trained, and I kind of popped up out of nowhere. And that's where a lot of people are like, well, how did you even come into this like that? I'm like, well, nothing was going on. So it kind of just, it ruined everybody's routine. Everybody had to start from scratch, and nobody had structure because you could go to work on your laptop in pajamas. And that's great. But where's motivation for it? If you're home all day in comfy clothes, why would you want to leave? Why would you want to go do anything?
Well, that's it. You know, like when I split my time between the office and home.
Mm-hmm.
And when I work at home, like I'm productive.
Right.
But it's just a different feel. The funny thing for me is when I come up here, there's almost like too much going on up here. Like I walk into the warehouse and I'm like, okay, I have to do this. But then there's all this stuff going on too.
Like a sensory overload? There's so many things going on? Yeah.
And it's taken me a while to sort of figure out, you know, okay, if I'm coming up here, I have to set things for myself. Like there's no point in me driving up here to set a computer and do emails. I can do that at the house. So I try to do stuff where I get up in the morning and do all my computer work at the house. Pour another cup of coffee and drive up here and try and chill out and like sort of switch my focus a little bit to actually what stuff
needs to be done here
versus just, you know?
I know that I need to get a little bit better at it, but I have I have 3 calendars in my house. They're in completely different ends of the house, and they actually are notated to different things. So like all of my appointments are on one calendar that I pass every single morning when I have to get changed. all of my client personal, like everything training wise or social media, everything is on another calendar. And then I have all of my travel stuff right before I walk out the door. So, and that's the only way that I've been able to keep like semi-organized since now that I'm not in an office 40 hours a week, because I was in an office 40 hours a week and I was doing side stuff, you know, because I was organized and I was sitting. And if I had some downtime, yeah, I'm going to do stuff for myself. What, you know what I mean? Everybody does.
Yeah.
But it's just, it took me a while to figure out some sort of system to be able to organize, keep structure, and keep on task. Instead of like seeing something like, oh, well, I'm just going to hop over there and I'm going to go do that until that's finished, and then see something else and go do that and just scurry around like a rat all day.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, I'm building out this email for whatever topic. Well, I got to pull this from Instagram for it. Oh, let me just check.
Yeah, and then you go into a wormhole
let
of,
me check
yeah.
the comments. Let me check this. Let me check that. And I'm like, oh, shit, it's been 20 minutes. Well, you know what? Let me have something to eat. And then I'll come back to that. I'm like, fuck. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
we just do it.
Our brains have just been scrambled.
Yeah. So you touched upon very minorly there coaching stuff. So you do coaching.
Yep.
How long have you been doing that for?
Not very. So when I was living in New York and I was fighting full time, I helped manage a gym and I had personal training clients and I taught group classes. I got so burnt out and so miserable because I was training for myself at least 5 hours because I had different classes. So I'd go to JITS or I would go to pad work or we'd have conditioning time. And so it was at least 5 hours of training for myself that I had to do. So you'd split up morning, afternoon, and night. And then I was at the gym for like 8 hours because I managed it and I had clients and then I did all of those group classes. And I was so sick of people and not even, I hate to say that, but I was so tired of sitting there and begging somebody to pull out the energy and the effort and the want to train and to go through the PT that we were supposed to be doing when they didn't want to be there and you're paying me to be there. And I would give anything for this extra hour so I could work on myself. But I'm going to be here and I'm going to hold your hand and you're going to whine and complain. And that's that. And so I was so done with it that I haven't done it. I didn't do it from 2017 until a few months ago. And I started to pick up clients again and but I'm picky with them. I get to choose. If you come to me, we'll talk over the phone. And if it's something that I feel like I can benefit you and I can help you and you're willing to put in the work, 1,000%, I will help you. I will pick up every phone call, every text message. But if you don't want to put the work in, I'm not going to beg you to do it. And I don't even want your money.
Yeah.
I don't do it for that. I do it because I'm really lucky that I'm on a platform and in a position that I am, and I have the knowledge for really big competitions that I think is a huge factor in the strongman game is experience. And being able to share that with somebody that's what I enjoy. I would much rather make somebody feel comfortable at a competition because I can give you some pointers that I had to learn the hard way, and so it's easier on you.
And that's what like we're trying to do now with Cerberus, with like the pro tips every week, the written articles, and like we're looking to do more stuff. Like that's why we built this.
Yeah.
You know, I got this warehouse in March, and we're almost at the point of it being done in the back, at least with the gym, and then we're doing some other stuff. But like, I mean, I've been involved in Strongman since 2006.
I wasn't out of high school yet.
Oh, shit.
I'm sorry. I had to throw that out there.
Appreciate it.
It's okay. That's what I'm here for.
I've been involved in Strongman for almost,
but that's incredible.
a long, long time. So like now I'm like, okay, I've learned a hell of a lot. What can I give back and what can I help people with? And that's like engaging to me. You know, like that's why I want to involve, you know, that side of stuff in the business more and be like, okay, what can we do to, you know, pass on some of the knowledge? Because I think, you know, give me your opinion on this. I feel like Strongman has sort of changed a little bit the last few years. Mm-hmm. It's becoming more standardized, which is good.
Yep.
But I think there's a little part of it that there's not as much to like figure out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, it was, you know, back in my day, it was this whole deal of, a different implement or, like just different, you trained with different crews. And I would always watch people and see like, how does this person do it? And the people who were always most, like I was most interested in were the newer athletes because they're fresh.
Right.
They're fresh-minded. Like, hey, go pick this up. How do they pick it up? Because we've been told to pick it. Like some, older veteran has told us to pick it this way. How does he do it?
I think that's what drew me to Strongman also. And like growing up, I always watched, like they'd always put them on like random times on the TV. And we only had a few channels because we were in the middle of nowhere. And so it was on and I would watch it. And I think it was so cool because every single competition that I watched growing up never had the same events. And it was so exciting. And when Strongman when I first started training it, that's what, I trained like different events all of the time, and it was never boring and it was never mundane and it was always different. And that's always, I would always love to watch, like you said, athletes, how they do it, because maybe that'll work better for me.
Yeah.
Or maybe I can change something or tweak something for then it to work better for me, which is a prime example for the power stairs for America's Strongest Woman. I picked to do that show because I had never done power stairs before. And I was so excited, and that's all I wanted to do. And then I started training for it, and I realized I was too fucking short. It was an 18-inch implement on an 18-inch step, which, not good at math, but that's 38 inches, and I'm 59 inches tall. And I had to upright row that bitch. There was no way. So I had to train to Zercher it. And I had never seen anybody do it, so I didn't know if I could actually do it that way. So I had to reach out to Dion and James and be like, is this something that I can actually do?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to Zercher this? I got the green light, and that's what I trained with it for. But it's the only thing that bums me out about Strongman is I wish that the events would change more often than like the fads of Strongman, right? So like every competition I feel like I did for the first year was that sandbag toss.
Yeah.
Which, cool, that's great. It's easy to set up. It transfers to Highland Games because it's a single hand for Highland. It's double for here. Or you can do single. You could, you know what I mean? Whatever works for your style. But I did it for like 4 competitions in a row. Instead of, I loved the idea of it always changing.
Yeah.
Or like, I can still remember watching that one medley that was an anchor and a chain. And you had to drag the chain, you had to carry the anchor, connect those two, and then drag it back. And I thought it was the coolest thing. Or they were carrying the stones through the ocean, or that hang that they had to do over top of the water, like the max hang. I thought these were the coolest things on planet Earth. How could you not want to do this sport? And then I got into it, and it's, like you said, it's just a lot more standardized now.
Yeah.
Which is okay for, I think, safety reasons, in the sense of there's so many new athletes coming in, which is amazing. And to keep them safe and to keep them non-injured, if you standardize it a little bit more, cool. But bring some old shit back, please.
It was almost like back in the day, it was like the Wild West almost, And for me, it does make sense to standardize stuff. Because, you go to, I was at USS Nationals last weekend. Mm-hmm. I think sign-up was 633 people and 509 competed. Yeah. So 500 people in a day competed. So you have to have some sort of
yeah, because you got to push people through.
Yeah, it's a conveyor belt.
Yeah, I remember my first USS Nationals. We did it in like 2 hours, and I think it was 5 or 6 events.
There was 5 events, 8 lanes, like different classes each lane, and one of the lanes ran all 5 events in like just over 2 hours.
That's insane.
That's faster than the Giants Live contest. And Giants Live moves real quick for the live crowd.
Yeah.
Like you can't move slow when you've got 15,000 people sitting there.
No, especially when you're doing it outside and it's hot and it's just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think having some more of the fun stuff at America's Strongest Man, America's Strongest Woman, world stuff, like that, it's the allure of strongman.
Yeah, and I really liked it too because it could change in a drop of a hat. And that's what was so cool about Strongman, because you have to be an athlete to adapt to these last minute changes. You have to be okay with it. And that's what was so attractive to Strongman. Because, like, if something changed, cool. I'm strong enough. I'm smart enough. I'm fast enough. I can make it happen where I can do really well at this event, even though I didn't train it like that. Like, so for the world records in the UK that I did for the log, I had never touched a 12-inch log until my warm-ups out at UK because I didn't have access to one. So I knew, I said, it's going to be what it is. You're just going to have to be strong enough and figure it out. And I didn't get the world record. That's okay. But it went a lot better than what I thought for never touching that implement. But it goes back to being athletic and having a strong base and just being ready for anything to change. And that's what I always tell all of my athletes is you can't get so set in stone about everything has to be a certain way. I think routine is really important, right? So my first Clash show, I didn't have 2 sandbags to train for. It was a sandbag, run down, drop, 2 sandbags, and then you had a sled to pull back. I didn't have 2 sandbags. So when I was training, I would pick the sandbag up, I would run past the sled, wouldn't drop it, I would run back with the sandbag, drop it, run back and drop it in the sled, and that's when I would row it. And the first thing that I did in Clash in Texas was I ran past the sled and I dropped the sandbag, and then I had to go pick it up again. But I did exactly what I trained. So muscle memory is super important, but it's being able to be adaptable on the spot is what's really important. And that's what I try to tell everybody that wants to do strongman. It's like, you can read your rules, you can go through the rules meeting, ask a million questions. Just know that it can change at any time, and it is what it is.
The interesting thing for me with strongman now is because it is standard, yet there's still differences between every single set of implements on the planet. Mm-hmm. But people seem to get hyper fixated on that.
And then they get those mental fuck ups because they get so hyper fixated that, oh, well, that knurling is a little bit different than what I trained with. I don't really feel comfortable with it. It's a fucking bar.
That's the interesting thing for me, you know, not to sound like the old man again.
Right.
But like, I don't ever remember asking about like a height of farmers or, you know, is it knurled handles, is it not knurled handles? What's this? What's this? What's this?
Right.
And I don't think there's a problem with it, with asking it, but at the same time, like, it doesn't matter because everyone in the competition is doing the same thing. Yeah, okay,
Yep.
You know, they may have had access to knurled farmers and you were smooth. Okay, they're going to be disadvantaged because they're not used to it, you know, vice versa, whatever. But it just feels like people get hyper fixated in that versus just train. Just train and
just
don't
train
worry
the
about
best of your ability. And like you said, everybody's doing the same exact thing when they get out there. And it just comes down to if you performed on that day and if you were strong enough to finish. That's it.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the implement. It has to do with the user.
Yes.
I mean, you can't blame a spoon because people get fat. You have to blame the person using the tool.
Yeah.
And everybody makes mistakes, but when you get so, like you said, hyper fixated on these things, you get past that mental block and then you're stuck. You're going to walk up to that implement and you're like, I didn't train it this way. It's not going to feel right. I'm not going to do well. Well, you've already lost. That's it.
So then the segue then, how do you combat that? How do you personally combat that?
I think it really hit home because I fought for so long that mentally, if you walked in thinking that you had a weakness or thinking that they had an advantage on you or thinking that you were going to lose or that something was going to screw you up, you shouldn't even walk in that cage. There's no point. So when I train, when I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it the best of my ability, no matter the implement. It's not going to matter. My skills are my skills. A bar is a bar. Pick it up and put it down or put it over your head. Whatever you have to do with it, that's your fucking job. You are there to do your job as a professional athlete. On these other competitions, yes, it is a hobby, but you paid to be there. Don't waste your time. Don't waste other people's time. And it's just like for basketball, right? You had to test the air in the ball. If you miss a shot, right? No, there was too much air in it. It was too bouncy. No, you missed it because you shot wrong. That was it. You either put too much on it, you didn't put enough on it, you didn't have a good follow through, your follow through went to the right or went to the left. You can't blame the implement. So don't get fixated on it. Get fixated on something else. Get fixated on your nutrition, on your diet, on a routine. If you're cycling, whatever tools you are using to benefit your performance, that's what you fixate on. But the tools you're using to compete, it's just there. It's not something that you can change. And if you can't change it, you can't stress about it.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more.
That's just, and I always sound harsh when people at like rules meetings, right? They ask all of these different things, or like, well, why did we switch this, or what are we doing with that? It wasn't your decision. You're here to represent you as an athlete and the brands that got you here. So do your best and do your job. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know about you, but like whenever I competed, I always, like, I never had the mindset of like you have to be realistic. Mm-hmm. But I'm coming to win. Like I'm not coming to make up the numbers. Like I'm coming here because I want to win.
Yeah.
And that was just always how I viewed it. Like I didn't view it as, oh, I'm just going to do whatever. Like, cause you never know what's going to happen in the day.
Yeah.
Like when I competed in Indiana in 2017, like some other guys were like, I was like, oh, these guys are gramps. They could destroy me on deadlift. Nope, beat them.
Right.
This guy's going to destroy me on this event. Nope, beat him. Because they were having a crappy day. So if you go in thinking, like, I never viewed it as, okay, well, he did this, so I'm probably only going to get 3. Like, he pulled 5 reps in deadlift, I'm probably only going to pull 3. No, just go and do it until you can't do anything else.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Holly McRae is for the 64 kgs. Diana Farah from Mexico, she's incredible also. But for Circus Dumbbell, Highland McRae was the #1 girl for 64 kgs for Circus Dumbbell going into OSG. Going into that event, I didn't say that I have no chance to beat Holly. I went in there and said, I'm going to do what I know that I can do. And if it's better than her, cool. And if it's not, I didn't have anything left. And if you can walk off and say you had nothing left, then you did the best that you can. And if someone was better than you, they're better than you. That's like when I was out in the UK, they asked about, like, how do you feel about your nemesis, Rhiannon? And I was like, that's not what this is. Strongman for me is I'm competing against myself. Everybody else has their own set of skills. Everybody else has their body type. Everybody else has their best events. I can do whatever I can do in that time frame to the best of my ability. And if somebody is better than me at it, good for them. I know what I need to work on. I'm never going into a competition with the intent of beating everybody. I'm going in, I want to win, and I'm going to do the best that I can, not something personal. This isn't a personal sport. This is a sport that we choose to ruin our bodies for ourselves. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm choosing to wreck myself to be the best that I can, to win, but not to beat Rhiannon and not to beat Holly. I'm here to beat the best that I am. So it's just a mindset kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. And that was the thing for me, like, same deal. Like, I'm doing this because I want to do it. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. Like, sure, there's probably a part of me that's like, oh, well, I want to show I'm capable of X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
But it was always like, I'm doing this because this is what I do, you know?
Yeah.
But then that, conversely, was then the hardest thing for me to get away from almost when I pulled back from competing, because in my mind, this is what I do. This is all I do. Or
right.
This is not all I do, but...
No, but when you're at a level that we are, right, it does have to be your life. It doesn't have to be your identity.
Yeah.
But it has to be your life.
But I think a lot of people let it sort of... They fall into it being their identity.
Right.
You know, so then what's the key to not letting that happen? I think if I had been in that stage or this situation, like with my mindset now, I could have done most of the things I did and probably had a fulfilled life, or like a, you know, more fulfilled life with different hobbies and travel and whatever else. But I never saw that at the time, you know?
I think it took this last month, and a lot of people don't know I have some family things going on, and it really punched me in the face real hard that we don't have a ton of time, and we don't have a ton of time with people that we keep close to us in our circle, and that anything can happen, and you have to be able to take advantage of life. So yeah, Strongman is my career, it's my job, it's my life, but so are my dogs, so are my relationships, so is my partner, my household, the hobbies that I love, my chickens. Like things that you wake up for every single day. It can't be one reason. It has to be every reason. You have to be able to give yourself to everything. And it was really hard to watch and really hard to know that I lived so far away and all of this just happened like overnight. And I traveled all the time, right? So like when I was competing all last year, I was working a full-time job, and my mom came to visit for the first time in South Carolina in the almost 3 years that I had lived there, and I still had to go to my office job, and then I still had to train, and then maybe I had an hour with her every day that she was there, you know what I mean? And she was sleeping at my house. But I had so many other things that were so important that I dropped the ball on it, you know? And I really think it's important, no matter what level, that you have to give attention to other things in your life that are so important to you, because you just don't know when they're not gonna be there. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean not go to the gym for 3.5 hours to perfect the craft that you wanna do. But just make sure you balance everything right, because if you don't balance, the scale's gonna break and everything's gonna fall apart. And then you're gonna have to start all over again.
And that's what I've had to learn.
It's hard.
At different times in my life. Like there was times like starting the business where my mindset was like, well, the more work I put in, the more success it will be.
Yeah.
And pulling like silly hours. And then when you actually pull back a little bit, you'd be like, well, you know what? It's just about consistency.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight. It's the same as lifting.
Right.
You just have to be consistent over and over again. Yeah. Try and figure out something that works, something that makes either the business or, you know, whatever successful, and then just do it and be repetitive with it. Yeah. And just stick to the program sort of thing.
Yeah. Through bad days and through good days. Every single training session isn't going to be amazing. And you're going to have those really shitty days. You're like, how am I even a pro?
Yeah.
Like, I went from being able to deadlift what I can to not being able to pick up a laundry basket because I tore my hamstring. And then I missed my last Christmas with my grandmother because I couldn't drive home or I couldn't fly. And then all the other stuff with my family happened. Doesn't mean I don't regret competing. You know what I mean? Like I would do it all over again if I knew the same exact outcome. But again, it's balance. It's being able to know that you can still do this. You can have a shitty day, and you can go back and you can do it again, and it could be better, but still make sure that you have your life. Chloe Brennan made it a really big point that like Strongman is her hobby, and she still has a life. That is not her identity. It is so important for people to know that. And I've repeated it, I don't even know how many times, but I just want people to know that like whatever competitive sport you're in, it's not everything. You still have everything going on with relationships and everything.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, because I think even at top level, like if you're top of the NFL, you still have other things you may want to do.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to.
Yeah.
So with that, we're getting told to wrap it up a little bit. So
we talk too much. We're chatty Cathy's. What can we say?
We'll wrap up here. Good luck tomorrow. And
I'm excited. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, of course.
It was fun.
Catch you later.